Welcome to another episode of The Bastard Sermon. I'm one of your three hosts, Cody Hucker.
Patrick Seta.
And Luke Young.
And today we've got on the nationally famous comedian James Inman, hailing from Kansas City, Kansas, I believe. Might have fucked that up.
No, Missouri.
Missouri. All right. I knew I was going to fuck something up. If you guys aren't familiar with James Inman's work, he did the documentary, Doug Stanhope's The Unbookables, where him and Brendan Walsh and fucking Sean Rouse and a bunch of great comedians, and Andy Andrus, they all get together, Christine Levine, they all get on the road. They're touring all these fucking shithole bars and stuff like that. They get into crazy shenanigans. They're fighting. It's a good documentary if you're a fan of like dark comedians and like weird shit that they're doing and stuff like that. He's also done the Greyhound Diaries, which is like this. Inman was living on a bus, living across the whole fucking city, like just doing crazy shit, and then did a whole fucking a whole live performance called the Greyhound Diaries, where he talks about those experiences and makes it comical and hilarious and palatable to listen to and shit. And if you're not familiar, you can find all that shit on YouTube or buy one of his CDs and shit like that. We've got James on. James, say what's up to everybody.
Hi.
How's it going?
What's up, buddy?
Good.
So we were just right before we got into this. James was in this heated thing about flat earthers, and that was pretty interesting.
Flat earthers. What, you want me to tell you the whole story again?
No,
no.
We don't. As soon as Pat said that, I was like, what do you want him to do? Rehash the whole thing? That was like...
Did it sound reasonable?
It sounded super reasonable. James was basically saying, like, his whole thing...
Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to see that. You're going to see lots of flat earthers, people that are anti-flat earthers. You're going to see vaccine people and anti-vaccine people. It's never going to be anything important. Right. It's always going to be stupid shit like that.
100%.
Very fucking
absolutely.
true.
100 million fucking
And it's getting worse. I remember when Facebook first came out, I was reading all kinds of cool stories. Now they've like put some clamp down. They what was it? They banned like something like 800 pages or something.
It was something crazy.
Anyway,
Was it for like anti-vax or something? Is that what? Am I mistaken?
I have no idea. I don't know how exactly that worked.
Yeah, well.
Do you know what it was for?
Right, what?
Do you know what they banned the pages for? Was it anti-vaxxers or what was it for?
Well, Facebook hooked up with this NATO company, and if you look into it, it sounds pretty fishy. Where this company that is like somehow backed by NATO is telling Facebook, how to get fake news off of Facebook. But when you read some of these goddamn websites and these pages that they took down were like anti-cop, filming cops, Free Thought Project. I mean, I used to have like daily videos of cops shooting unarmed black men in the street, and every day it just got worse and worse and worse. And people were like, what in the fuck is going on? Somehow Facebook found a way to get rid of all of that. So you don't see those shit anymore.
And you hear
that's fucking true.
It's totally true.
Now the stories are goofy and comical, like everything that's coming across, because they're burying all the real shit that's happening, or they're focusing on some celebrity's life, like that celebrity's worth a fuck. You caring about their fucking stupid life and who they're fucking doing coke off of, whose tits that isn't their wife. Why do you care? Why are you paying attention? If this is in the news, go look around and see what laws are being fucking passed, because I guarantee some shady shit is going down, probably in your local government that you don't even fucking know about. I mean, that's what a lot of this shit is a distraction, so that they can fucking, so that you pay attention to this dumb, substanceless shit that doesn't help you at all or affect your life in any way positively or negatively. It's just a distraction to keep you not paying attention to the real shit that's actually happening to you. And that's what this fucking, that's what you were saying off the mic, basically, is that's what these fucking flat earthers
or look at these, every article that I read about the Louis C.K. problem, right? Like you'll have some guy write this article about modern comedy and how these comics are they're punching down and they're making fun of marginalized groups. And then I'm reading the article, and then they never mention this 18-year war. They never mention homelessness or the CIA. I'm like, dude, if you hate the comedy world so much, why don't you get into stand-up comedy and start doing it yourself and you write some jokes where you punch up, all right? Because it looks like you have a good outlook, but you're not doing it. You're gonna just let all these other people go on stage. We have freedom of speech. All these other people are going on stage making these offensive jokes that you don't like. You get into it and you do it, or shut the fuck up.
And they
because
do.
I read your article. When you read these articles about Louis C.K., they're punching down. Yeah, and so I'm like, what is your idea of a great joke? And they never mention something like, don't you have any jokes on the Iraq War or the fact that we've been at war for 18 fucking years? Do you have any jokes about Venezuela? How the fucking CIA has been trying to get that goddamn oil for fucking years? I mean, you never hear that. They're never like, just don't talk about transgender people. I've got these other jokes. About what? About what? Your fucking parents? Or I don't know.
And the
I
thing
had a
is,
goddamn landlord joke. This is what fucking pisses me off. When I was living in Seattle, there was all kinds of comics doing jokes about homelessness. Every comic went on stage, did a goddamn joke about, the homeless people. This guy asked me for a quarter, blah blah blah. And I was like, when is somebody going to look at this situation differently than everyone else? So I said, I'm going to write a landlord joke. So I wrote a landlord joke, how my fucking landlord is lazy and he doesn't want to work. All he wants to do is knock on my goddamn door once a month, and I have to hand him $500. Get a fucking job. So, I did that joke for, I don't know, years, but you never hear anybody write landlord jokes. You never hear anybody write jokes about goddamn the Federal Reserve or the CIA or this fucking war, this fake war on terror that we've been fighting for 18 goddamn years. Shut the fuck up.
100%. I agree with you, kind of. I mean, I like the fist fuck jokes every once in a while, and like being distracted from just like anybody else, I like to be distracted sometimes too. It's nice
like
to be able to kick back and drink a beer and not just sweat, like flop sweat and have a panic attack like, fuck the fucking mountain of babies and fucking dead Native Americans that this country's built on. How can I even sleep at night? Like, it's nice to just kick my feet up every once in a while and laugh at a nice dick joke or a fart joke and not.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, there's a place for everything, right? But really quick. You were talking. You made one point about these people never get on stage. They do get up on stage and punch up, and you know what? And it fucking sucks every time that they try to do. You punch up. I'll laugh at anything. There's clean comedy that works, but like this fucking the shit that they cry about. Dry bar comedy. Dry bar comedy.
It's so absurd. It's getting to the point where there's a comic from Australia. I think I don't know. I forget her name. I can look her up. But she had this like one woman show where she opens up and she jokes about herself, and then in the middle of her act, she starts talking about shit that's really serious, right? And how wrong it was to joke about herself. So let's just simply call this what it is. They're now starting to say that it's offensive when you tell a joke about yourself. How in the fuck is that ever going to hurt you? I told a joke about myself, and now you're offended. What the fuck is wrong with you? God damn it. When you joke about yourself, you're taking yourself less seriously. It's helping you reduce your ego.
Yep.
It's humbling to go, you know what? I'm not that great of a guy. I'm kind of a fuck up.
I love that kind of comedy. I love it.
Self-deprecation is absolutely needed. 110% it's needed.
Well, sometimes you just gotta I feel like that's the same thing with Eminem. Whenever what was it, the movie 8 Mile, where he was like starting to tell all of the bad shit about himself just to what?
Keep going, Pat. I'm just listening to you quote 8 Mile right now.
No, I'm just saying. I'm not quoting it. I'm just saying it just makes me think of like all kinds of other things. Oh, no, I don't want to talk about it, you guys. But I'm just saying, you just say all your flaws right there and there, and they got nothing to say. It's just thinking, made me think of that.
Wow, it's called Nanette. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, Hannah Gadsby and Nanette.
Special how Hannah Gadsby. I mean, I gotta watch it just so I know, what she's talking about. I think that's the one, but it's like she gets real serious in the middle of the show, which is okay,
She doesn't just do that. She says that anybody that's not doing comedy about like calling people out and like out there like actually like. It was something along the lines of if you're not up on a stage talking shit about the issues of the world, then you have no place doing comedy, and you're not even doing comedy. You're anti-comedy or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
but then you ask them, what issues do you want us to talk about?
Well, no, my whole thing is like, just be funny. Talk about whatever the fuck you want. Just be funny. I don't care. I don't care what.
That's what that's what a good comic does. A good comic doesn't think before they talk.
Just get up there and make me laugh.
Everyone thinks comedy is so clever. It's not supposed to be clever. It's supposed to be stupid. We are the jesters. We're the clowns. We're the fools. We're the people that don't think before we talk. Do you really want to listen to someone that thinks before they talk? Those are the politicians and the professors and the goddamn poets and the priests. They bore the fuck out of me. I don't want you to think and come up with ideas and put them into nice words. I want to hear fucked up weird words.
I hear that story about one time I had to fish a fucking crayon on my dog's asshole. Like, I don't want to hear anything about... God. Yeah, I don't want to hear about my hemorrhoid shit stories. Don't want to hear about, like, some dude trying to lie to my face because he very cleverly thought out for 25 minutes in a dissertation, like, how he's going to cover up his lies with other lies, with fancy words that you don't understand, that you have to Google search to make sense of. Shit doesn't...
They're all just fucking lying through their teeth, and they're all scared shitless just like everybody else. 100%. I mean, we have to worry about the cops, but that's about it. The cops and paying the rent, Who knows what they worry about? Probably the goddamn Council on Foreign Relations.
James, just to kind of segue off a cliff here, you were talking off mic about something else that I kind of wanted to get into because I was really interested about the whole situation with the comedian that you were mentioning, Brody Stevens. When you told me that, that's the first time that I realized that he was dead. I didn't know that he was dead. I was processing that as you're telling that story. How did Brody pass, and what was your relation with Brody Stevens?
He committed suicide, and but he struggled with mental. He took meds for years. I mean, I remember when I was living in Seattle. I was a headliner living in Seattle when Brody started comedy. So, and plus, I used to hang out at the open mic nights all the time because I was always trying new bits. And Brody was there every Monday and Tuesday, And I instantly just hung out with him because he was the funniest guy. He made me laugh. I mean, he would get on stage and sometimes he'd bomb, people didn't get him. And there was a lot of people that didn't like him, by the way. There was a lot of people like, I don't see what you see in this guy. How come you think he's funny? I'm like, he's just funny. I don't know. And so I hung out with him for like 3 years, the whole time he lived in Seattle. And I remember when he first started getting depressed. And he showed up at the I don't know if he had problems before, like maybe he'd been taking medication, he never told me, but he started talking about depression and how he's seeing a therapist and he thinks he might have to take medication. And I was like, so of course I was his friend. I'm trying to cheer him up. I'm like, that's cool. I took that too. I took Prozac. I was telling him, how I took a few of those I don't know what they're called, antidepressants or whatever. Anyway, so I do remember him starting to take his meds, and he was always worried that it would hurt his creativity, But then the funny thing is, I got a great story about Brody. Okay, so when we were all hanging out, we were hanging out in this group. It was Brody, Tana Manu, who was a Samoan, and Yoshi, who was Korean. Brody was Jewish, and there was a couple other guys, I forget their name, black guy, and Josh Wolf, white guy, and me. I was the experienced headliner hanging out with these open micers that were all of them were completely drug and alcohol free. None of them drank beer. Yoshi didn't drink. Yoshi didn't smoke pot. I know Brody didn't drink a goddamn beer. He had two goddamn wine coolers in his refrigerator that he never touched. And he wouldn't even let me drink them because I was like, no, I'm saving those for when I have a girl over. And so Brody,
2 wine coolers,
like got bronzy or some shit.
At the time, I was drinking every day. I was taking acid and fucking. I was hanging out and taking methamphetamine with people in fucking off Mercer Island with Seattle grunge people, And anyway, so all of them got good. And Tana got good first. And so Tana had like 15, 20 minutes, and Kelly Moran took him on the road. Now, Kelly Moran was this local Seattle comic that smoked pot every day, right? Kelly Moran was a big pothead. So they're out on the road in Canada, and Kelly lights up a joint or something, and Tana goes, what's that? What are you smoking pot? That's illegal. And Kelly goes, you mean to me you'd never smoked pot in your life? And Tana goes, no, I never drank a beer, never smoked pot. And he's like, how old are you? He's like, I'm 25 years old. He goes, dude, you've got to smoke pot. Just fucking trust me.
Just force him to do it.
Trust me.
This is not an option. You're doing drugs tonight with us.
Somehow, Kelly talks Tana into smoking pot. Tana smokes pot and has, starts laughing, has a great experience, right? He goes, man, this is the best drug ever. Tana comes back to Seattle, tells everyone the story. Then the very next day, Yoshi, Brody, and Josh Wolf, Tana, all of those fuckers were high. I showed up at open mic night, and all of their eyes were like really red, and they were just like staring. I'm like, what the fuck? And I found out they all started getting high because Tana got high, and none of those. Brody never touched drugs ever, and so somehow he was able to like smoke the pot and also take his meds, and he figured out a certain level of sanity. And then the fucker moved to LA and he got famous. I had no idea he would do so good. I mean, I always loved him. I hung out with him all the time.
Zach Galifianakis loved him too. That's where he got a lot of his fucking shit from, wasn't it? Like, wasn't that dude out there? Rogan loved him.
Oh, Zach. Now, see, when Brody moved to LA, he hooked up with Zach Galifianakis because Zach Galifianakis has got good taste in comedy. Zach knows who the fuck is funny. And who's funny? Brody is funny. We all said that. But it's just like, I've always said there, I always watched his show. It doesn't matter what he talked about. He always found a way to make it funny. But there were people that seriously did not like him. Like, he is not funny. I don't understand what you like about this guy. I'm like, dude, you're an anti-Semite. Shut the fuck up. This is Brody Stevens.
He was in movies,
too.
funny.
He was so funny. I mean, I was a headliner. I won the San Francisco comedy competition. They sent me out to Just for Laughs Festival. But Brody wanted me to do this public access show. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. I love you. I don't care. And so once a week, we did this public access show. It was called the Brody Stevens Show, and I was like the sidekick. I did like five shows with him, and then I had to go on the road, because I was a real comic, So I went on the road for like 3 months, and when I came back, Brody had Tana. So it was the Brody and Tana Show, and they did over 200 shows. And he became a Seattle fixture. Like people recognized him on the street in Seattle. You're from the Brody Tana Show, So basically, I was lucky enough to be in Seattle when Brody Stevens started comedy, and I started with him. And I remember giving him a lot of fucking advice too. I talked him into doing improv because, like, he would just come up to me and go, how come I'm not getting laughs? I'm like, well, let's look at your video. Do you see right here when you did your joke, you didn't get any laughs? Did you hear this, what you said right after the joke when you made fun of how the joke didn't work? You hear those people laughing? That's funny. Keep doing that.
And that's what he became known for, is like his fucking like.
Well, yeah. And so I told him, I said, don't stick to your material. Just go up there and talk off the top of your head. You know, one time I wanted to take him on the road, and he's like, I only got 10 minutes, James. I go, Brody, trust me. All you have to do is talk for 30 minutes, and you'll still be funny, all right? And he was like, oh, I only have 10 minutes of material. I'm like, shut up. just so, there and talk.
Inman, the level of weird that Brody Stevens is on stage, is he that dude, like, I guess it's like is he that type of dude off of stage? Because there's certain guys that get up there and have this persona about them on stage, and you're like, are you that same fucking person in real life? Or
No.
Okay.
See, he actually, he got a Comedy Central show. All right, so if you watch Brody Stevens Enjoy It, you know, you'll see him off stage. I mean, he's a likable, normal guy off stage. I mean, his character on stage was a little more animated, and he went into the Brody mode. But, you know, off stage he was, you know, still, you know, but he would come out, you know, I mean, comics are like that. I mean, I'm a little bit animated right now myself, but he was a normal, and if you watch Brody Stevens Enjoy It, it's a Comedy Central TV show. You can find it on BitTorrent. They might start playing it again on Comedy Central. I don't know. You'll see him on and off stage because they follow him around with the camera. It's a lot like the Unbookables because you're like, what is it with this guy? You know, Zach Galifianakis just did a brilliant job. I mean, the whole idea was great.
Yeah, I'm glad that dude got to be known by a lot of people because he seemed like I never got to know him. I mean, I don't know him personally or anything like that, but just the way that his shit comes across on
Doug
stage.
Knows him too.
It's like
I didn't know that Doug knew him. Doug.
You're talking about Doug Stanhope for our listeners.
Doug Stanhope. You know, because Doug had that show called The Man Show, and they had Brody Stevens warm up the crowd at the Man Show. It may not have had anything to do with Doug or you know, it could have been like the producers or something said, we got to hire this guy to warm up the show. But that's how Doug met Brody, is through the Man Show. And so I was like, I had no idea that Doug knew Brody. And I was like, Doug, I was friends with Brody for 3 fucking years. I mean, our Doug and my life have just gone in and out, and just like somehow we're always accidentally meeting up.
Inman, I'm curious.
I met that fucker in Vail.
Inman, I'm curious. How did you meet Stanhope specifically?
I met him in Vail. There was this.
In what? Your microphone cut off.
Just for Laughs. They had Just for Laughs out in Montreal, and this group of people with Judy Brown and Bud Friedman wanted to start their own comedy festival. So they went around the country and they auditioned comics from every major city, like New York, Seattle, San Francisco, whatever, Atlanta, and Canada, Toronto. And so they would come to town and they said, give us your best comics. And so they would sit through like 10 of the best comics from that city, and they picked one, and they picked Doug from Las Vegas or Boston or something, I don't know, and they picked me from Seattle. And so when they had the Vail Comedy, it was called the Vail Comedy Invitational, they flew us out the Vail, they flew Doug out the Vail, and that's where I met Doug Stanhope.
Did you guys
that's
get
pretty cool, man.
Did you get in all type of crazy fucking shenanigans immediately? Like,
I got a question. I wanted to ask you. So you said that Doug was part of the Man Show. Did you know him around that time?
Yeah, I knew him. Well, see, when Doug got the Man Show, I was like, holy shit, Doug's getting famous, and I was like too nervous to call him because I didn't want him to think that I was trying to like
ride his coattails.
Yeah, it's gotta be a weird feeling.
He's really like that, you know. He's like, good, you know. Everybody's a big user, so I'm like, I just didn't call him. And so Doug was like, Inman, you know. Doug would call me. I'm like, what, Mr. Stanhope? You know, I'm like nervous talking to him. Fucking show, you know. And he's like, I'm having a party out in Panama. I want you to come out. I'm like, Doug, I don't have the money. He's like, I'll buy you a plane ticket. So he flies me out to Panama, and that's where I met, you know, all of Doug's friends, and I already knew Andy Andrus because I'd worked with Andy on the road before. And so we would just do this party in Panamint once a year. I went to like 7 of those parties, and I do not, to this day, I don't know why Doug likes me.
James, well, he talks about it on the podcast because he fucks with you until you get like really mad at him. And you start screaming in his face at like word, like just fucking spit flying. And like,
I won the San Francisco comedy competition like the year after Doug won it.
Wasn't Doug the judge though? He was the judge of that.
Yeah, Doug was the judge,
and he rigged the competition for you so you could win that shit because he's a good fucking friend.
Everyone says that Doug rigged the competition.
Doug says that he rigged the competition. Doug says it.
No. Listen, I had so many points by the 3rd day that I was going to win anyway, even if I tanked on that last night. And so the night that Doug was the judge, he gave me all straight 10s, but I already won anyway.
Right.
I mean, so I won like 10 grand, but I never moved to LA. I stayed in Seattle. I was too chicken to move to LA. Doug was like, fuck it, I'm moving to LA. I mean, Doug always had balls of steel. He was like, fuck it, I'll live in my goddamn car. I don't care. And I was too chicken. The city was too big. Too many fucking lanes on the highway. I'm like, who wants? I can't imagine myself living in a city that big.
There's so many people. I mean, I've had so many friends that have tried to move out there several times to try to make something of themselves, and they end up living in their car like the whole fucking time because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Like a one bed, like basically a studio apartment's like $1,600 or something ridiculous.
I don't even nowadays. If you want to get into film, you can make a film anywhere. If you got a laptop and a halfway decent camera, you can make a film in Sioux City, Iowa. That's what they did with the Unbookables. They made that film in Seattle, and so I was lucky that I hooked up with Jeff Pearson, the director of the Unbookables, and Doug. I introduced those 2 guys, and they decided to make this documentary. Jeff had already made one documentary about pirate radio, and it was kind of edgy and grungy, because Pearson was always Jeff Pearson was the perfect guy to make that documentary. Because I told Doug, I said, Doug, I know Jeff Pearson. He had a public access show for like 15 years in Seattle. It was the #1 local public access show. It was called Deface the Nation, and he kind of mixed politics with comedy, kind of like the Daily Show. Before the Daily Show was ever around, Seattle had Deface the Nation. And so I was like, Doug, he's already made one documentary. He's been producing these TV shows for 15 years. Let's let him do it. And Doug was like, well, okay, but don't tell. What did Doug say? He goes, don't tell Dan Schlissel. And so that's when I knew.
Who's Dan Schlissel for our listeners?
Dan Schlissel, the guy that owns Stand-Up Records. And so Dan Schlissel produced a Unbookable CD. And so Doug was like, well, don't tell Dan Schlissel because I think he wants to be a director or something. And I was like, fine with me. I won't tell Dan. I call up Jeff. I'm like, Jeff, he wants to do the fucking documentary. I called up Norm Wilkerson. I'm like, Norm, it's on. Let's start booking gigs. So Norm booked a bunch of gigs. Brett Erickson booked some gigs. I booked a gig. And they just filmed the whole thing.
What happened to Norm Wilkerson? Because I've watched this whole documentary that you've talked about.
I'll tell you what happened to Norm Wilkerson. His wife, who was like 35 or 40, I mean, she got pregnant and she had twins. Norm is a dad now. And he's like, but he still does comedy in Austin, and he's got a great act. I mean, he's killing on stage.
Okay, so he's just a local Austin comic now, basically.
But he doesn't travel like Brendan Walsh or Brett Erickson or Andy Andrus. But he's still Norm. He's still funny, but he's a dad. I mean, he's a real fucking dad with twins, and his wife got pregnant. So he's like, I'm gonna be a daddy.
What about Travis Lipsky? What happened to Travis? Because you don't hear anything about Lipsky
Travis
either.
became a filmmaker. Travis has got a film. I've seen it. It's fucking brilliant. Travis moved to LA, or he moved to San Diego or outside of LA. Then he moved back to Peoria. He was traveling the country. He quit drinking. He started getting into health nut shit. So he's like buff. I mean, he's like, I don't know if he works out or something, but when he quit drinking, it kind of helped him out with his personality, because he used to be a mean motherfucker. I mean,
I saw it's in the documentary. He tries to fist fight you in the fucking comedy condo.
Lipsky is such a curmudgeon. I mean, he's just a born curmudgeon, born skeptical, born negative, and that's what makes him so funny. He was, I think, to be quite honest, Lipsky and Rouse were the two best writers, joke writers,
and the most savage fucking animals.
Lipsky's got some great material, man, that we couldn't. Something was fucked up. We couldn't get it into the film because the audio was fucked up or whatever. But I mean, I'm glad we got that cop bit in that film, because, you know, that was years ago. Lipsky did that joke in 2009, and, you know, now we're dealing with police brutality as we speak. I mean, Facebook somehow wiped it all off. Fucking, we don't see it anymore, but we know it's still out there.
Yeah, another great comedian that's in that's a complete, like, just a stumble bum, fucking insane drunk, like, just like everybody, but on a different level, because he had the medical issues with Sean Rouse, who's also gone now. Rouse is one of my favorite comedians, and fucking, unfortunately, not a lot of people, not a lot of people really know him. And like, I'd seen him. I'd been watching comedy since I was a real little kid and shit. And he was on Dave Attell's Insomniac tour. He had like Dane Cook, Greg Giraldo, and fucking Sean Rouse. And Sean Rouse does some fucking bit about climbing underneath the stall to ask for drugs, and it was hilarious even as a kid. I remember seeing him. And Stanhope talked about him periodically. He was on that Morbid Obscenity original Unbookables like DVD, and then he was on this. And in the whole fucking documentary, he's like, Rouse is getting so fucking drunk, he falls on his face at one point, bang, like takes a header right into the carpet, and he's got this big like sore on his face.
Well, I mean, come on, wait a second. We were all drunk at that party.
Right.
Sean actually, he's got rheumatoid arthritis, so not only was he drunk, he also had rheumatoid arthritis. So yeah, Sean's gonna occasionally fall down, you know.
But just eat it all with his face.
You know, he's like, he comes across in that movie, everyone likes Sean. Like, when people watch that film, they either love me or they hate me, or they love Andy or they hate Andy. Everyone 100% loves Sean Rouse. You know, it's just like,
he does that bit on stage. He does that fucking bit about the tsunami, coming and destroying child prostitution in fucking Thailand or whatever it is, and he just goes on, and it's in this fucking, like, wasn't the club that you guys were doing it and you weren't supposed to be like going dirty for the night, or at least that dirty for the night?
Well, I told that club owner, I said, look, I told him what it was going to be like. I'm like, we're going to do edgy comedy. There's going to be a documentary. They're going to film it. So, but I think the problem was when we got there the first night, like, this doesn't come out in the film, but when we got there the first night, some of the comics went over their time, you know, and it just kind of screwed up the show. And so we had some walkouts, and it wasn't like, I mean, yeah, some people walked out because it was edgy, but a lot of people walked out because, you know, like Brett or Sean like did 30 minutes. And I'm like, dude, there's 5 comics. We all should do like 10, 12 minutes at the most. And you just did 30 minutes. That fucked the whole thing up. And so the next night I had to get everybody on board. It's like, everyone stick to your time, And so, and then the club owner is like, man, this is like too over the top. I can't deal with it. I don't know.
Yeah, it seemed like a crazy experience, but you were talking about when people watch it, some people are like, I don't know if I like Andy, I don't know if I like James. That's because of the club owner that wanted to cancel the rest of the Unbookables and then fucking wanted to keep you, and then everybody else got butthurt. Like Andy Andrus kind of got upset, and fucking all the rest of the crew that you were with, that you were traveling with, got upset, and like tried to tell you that you were. Is that where you get the name for that first CD, the Pander Monkey thing? Because Andy Andrus was screaming
because Andy called me a pander monkey in that movie. But my deal was, I was like. I'm like, dude, they're filming a documentary. They're going to edit all this shit out, and they're going to pick their best favorite jokes anyway. All right? So you don't need to, like, my deal is, here's my deal. I've studied Taoism for years. Like, I have the entire Tao Te Ching memorized. All right? I'm not bragging, but I'm just like, when these guys were on that tour, they were trying to put legs on a snake. They were trying to be edgy and confrontational and offensive. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. You're already fine the way you are. You don't have to try to be more edgy than you are. Just be yourself. You've already got edgy jokes. And, so I just went up there. When I did my set at the Famous Johnny's, I just did my normal set that I would do anywhere. And I ended up killing. I had great shows, but they're up there trying to push the envelope. I'm like, you don't have to do that. You guys are already edgy, They
were up there trying to throw in, like, complete insanity just to push it over the top for the documentary itself.
Tell. Yeah, the audience can tell when you're trying too hard.
They were still, they were still funny, but I just understand how some fucking, like, Missoula, Montana crowd at 8 p.m. on a Thursday isn't ready to hear fucking, like, dead baby cancer jokes.
Sean Rouse was never trying too hard, because Sean Rouse was always Sean Rouse, Lipsky was trying to be too edgy, and Andy was trying to be too edgy. Andy wanted to fuck shit up because he didn't care, but it made for a great documentary, And Andy is like a brilliant comic now. I mean, Doug took Andy on the road, and last time I saw Andy, he had a solid 20 minutes. That was just hilarious.
I mean, Andy's got a good CD that's on Spotify.
Andy's CD is great. I mean, I like Andy's CD as much as, like, fucking Richard Pryor. I mean, that's how good Andy's CD is.
And he might stutter through it, and he might be a little drunk or on Xanax through it, but, like, that's why you like Andy Andrus, is because he's a fucking crazy person. You're like, that's part of where all this comes from, is this, like, insane lifestyle that you live and shit. Same as you, man. Like, that's why I listen to your comedy, because it's like you live a super weird fucking lifestyle where you're just kind of living. It sounds so douchey and cringy to say, like, living on the edge, but you're one of the few people that are doing, like, super weird shit, like living on this, like, crazy fringe of society, and not just as some trendy thing that you did in your 20s and now you're a real adult with a career. You're like, this is who I fucking am, sleeping in a big closet with a Buddha sticker in the back and fucking living on a Greyhound bus and traveling around making ends meet, doing weird shit here and there. Like, this transient lifestyle isn't some fucking thing that you did as, like, it wasn't a trendy thing that you did. It's really how you feel. And you can tell that about somebody when they keep doing something like that. I think that's what's so appealing about the Unbookables in general. Like, all of you people, like Stanhope, Christine Levine, you, fucking Andy Andrus, Travis Lipsky, any of these people, like, they're just weirdos, and I fucking love that about comedy. You guys have the funniest shit to say.
Yeah. They're all good. I mean, they're all great comics. I mean, I like the documentary. I mean, I didn't like the fact that I became, like, the center of attention, and because everyone was making fun of me through the whole film, and so they didn't really have anything but, like, me in every fucking camera angle, and I'm like, God, why'd you have to do that? But
just for funny. It's just funny to do shit like that, I guess.
So you travel all the time? Like, how often do you travel?
I don't travel, like, after this movie came out, and I can't work at, like, normal clubs like I used to, because they already know about me getting punched on stage. That video is out there everywhere, and the Unbookables. So a lot of club owners, like the Improv and the Funny Bones, they don't want to take a chance on me, so I have to play these other gigs, punk rock clubs or other comedy clubs or Friday, Saturday night. You know, I did headline. Last time I headlined was I headlined a real club, a Looney. I think it was Looney Bin out in Colorado Springs, and I mean, I did fine. I mean, normal people like me. I'm not always trying to be edgy, you know. I just want to get laughs, just like in the movie. I just want to get laughs.
You got a lot of passion. You know? You got a lot of passion for what you do. It fuels you. I want to hear some crazy stories about you on the road, though. I want to hear about some crazy shit. We got some good stuff.
Well, I mean, some of those stories I've already told on the Doug Stanhope. I got to think of a story I haven't told.
I mean, a lot of our listeners probably haven't listened to those episodes, but we definitely don't want to copy something that like.
Oh, here's a story I never told this. There was I was headlining the Laugh Stop in Austin, and I was hanging out with Tom Hester, and Tom Hester used to be friends with Bill Hicks, right? So Tom Hester and his friend God, what's his name? Anyway, Hester. I wanted, you know, I'm like, let's do some acid, you know, and so and so we did acid in the daytime on Saturday. We walked to the park, and like I'm tripping balls, you know, and for some reason I guess I wasn't thinking I had a show that night, you know, and so it gets to be around 7 o'clock, and Hester goes, I gotta drive you to the club. And I go, oh fuck, I gotta do a show, and I'm home.
God damn.
Hester walks me into the club. I walk in the club. I see the security guard. I instantly start getting paranoid. I'm like, everyone's an undercover cop. Tom Hester's an undercover cop. The opening act, she's an undercover cop. The feature act, he's an undercover cop. They're all out to get me. They want to catch me, and they want to. And so I left the club. I went walking in. I went across the street. I started wandering around the suburbs, right? And I was like, what am I going to do? I got to get to a phone. I start knocking on strangers' doors to ask them to use the phone high on acid.
Were you sweating like crazy too? Like all of it looking crazy?
I was just dressed like a, you know, I'm like, can I use your phone? And this one guy was like, dude, get out of here. You fucking lost your mind. And I'm like, holy shit. I look at my watch, and it's like 15 till, you know, it's like 8:30. I'm like, I got to get on stage. So somehow I ran back to the comedy club. I walk in, and right as I walk in, they bring me on stage. And so I'm on stage, and for some reason, like I went into autopilot. Like I just started doing my jokes, and I'm getting laughs. Next thing you know, 45 minutes goes by. I'm like, thank you, good night. I'm like, how in the fuck did I do that? It was like, what's that one pitcher that there's some pitcher that took acid, and he pitched a
there's a documentary about this on Netflix that you can watch about how he just
like
murdered it on acid while he was tripping
you can
balls.
get into that zone. You can get into that zone on acid where you actually are able to drive a car, or you're able to function, but you don't know how you're doing it, right? So somehow I had a great show. I get off stage, I'm like, holy shit. By that time, it was kind of wearing off. But yeah, I was seriously on acid that whole show.
Good God.
That sounds stressful as fuck.
We've been trying to figure out a live event where Luke is our resident psychedelic like tripper, eating weird shit and stuff, like mushrooms and acid and stuff. We want to get some live show going or some podcast going where we could just record for 5 hours straight, have Luke take acid 2 hours in advance, and just like hear the weird shit that he's got coming.
See where it goes.
Just see where it goes. Just like freak Luke out, watch horror videos on YouTube. He's into it.
He watches fucked up shit when he's like tripping on stuff, and it's disturbing.
It's one of my favorite things to do.
What do you watch? What do you usually watch?
Well, have you ever heard of the performance artist Alan Resnick?
No.
That dude's pretty
You've
fucking
told me
wild,
about him,
man.
but I still don't understand what it is. He's like building sculptures out of clay and other weird shit that doesn't
It's
matter.
weird as fuck. It's weird as fuck.
Yeah, check out Alan's tutorial.
All right, Inman, how did the Greyhound Diaries become a thing? Like, where did that evolve from in general? I know this is out of the left
you want me
field.
to tell that story? Okay, nobody believes me. Okay, but here's the whole Greyhound Diary story.
Set up what the Greyhound Diaries is too, because our listeners don't.
I don't even know what that is. Like I'm just now learning about.
Basically,
all this.
It's this book I wrote while I was riding the bus all over the country.
That sounds
awesome, dude.
Sounds wild.
And so, at the time, I was taking the bus to some gigs because it's just cheaper than flying. And I took the bus to Omaha, and I was reading this book on Taoism because at the time I was studying Eastern philosophy, right? And I get to this part in the book about Tantra. Now, Tantra is where you fuck a girl and you do these certain strokes and you hold back your semen and you make the girl come and you bring some kind of like energy. It's called yin energy, right? And so that was always like in the back of my mind, like I'm gonna try that sometime. But I didn't take it seriously, because I was like, this sounds weird, let's see if it fucking works, right? So I get to Omaha, and the first night there's some girls after the show. They want to hang out, and we go to some bar, and this girl's bitching about, oh, no one ever asked me out on a date. And I go, I'll take you out on a date. And so she's like, all right. So the next day we get dressed up. I took her out to a nice restaurant and everything. And I do the show. We go back to the condo, and we start fucking. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Trying to hold your cum for 1 minute.
I'm gonna do that thing that I read, the Tantra thing, right? So I start doing these strokes, like 9, it's like 9 short strokes and 1 deep stroke. And you just keep doing that, and you don't come, right? You just hold your semen back, right? I'm doing this for the longest fucking time, and this girl starts to come like a goddamn epileptic, all right? And I'm like, holy shit. And and I didn't come, right? So I was like, so did you have fun? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, let's do it again or whatever. And so I fucked her 2 or 3 more times, and I did that tantra thing like 2 or 3 more times. She came over, and I never told her what I was doing either. She was just like, he's got a weird stroke. And and so for some reason, I don't know if this shit works or not, but she drops me off at the Greyhound bus station. I buy a blank book. I get on the bus and I just start writing that book. I wrote that book in fucking, I don't know, 2-3 months. And every time I rode the bus, I wrote in that book, and it all started because I did Tantra. I had this incredible, creative boost of energy for 2 or 3 weeks. And, by that time, I already had half the book written. And I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to write this goddamn book. And it all started because I met that girl. I don't even know her name. I just, whatever it was, that girl gave me some kind of mojo. And that fucking Tantra, that shit works if you do it right. I'm not kidding. I've seen it with my own goddamn eyes.
So that's the beginnings of Greyhound Diaries. But what is the Greyhound Diaries?
No, basically, the idea was kind of like I'm writing this in the moment, kind of like Hunter S. Thompson, where he puts himself in the story. He's in the story, writing about the story. I didn't write that book at home behind my desk. I wrote every word of that book while I was sitting on the goddamn bus.
Okay.
So it was very gonzo journalism style, whatever drugs you might have been on, tripping balls on.
How can you not be inspired by Hunter S. Thompson? I read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas before I was a goddamn comedian. That's a great book. And he's inspired a lot of art. He inspired me to write. Another guy that inspired me to write The Greyhound Diary was a guy named Mark Lehner, who wrote a book called My Cousin, My Gastroenterologist. If you ever see that book, buy it, because it's the craziest fucking book you've ever read. It's like Hunter S. Thompson to the third power. And it's got all this scientific shit in it. And it's like the guy has lost his mind and he's writing a book. And so when you read My Cousin, My Gastroenterologist by Mark Lehner, you read it and you're like, I can fucking do this. Just like when you read Bukowski, you're like, fuck, I could be an author, you know?
Oh, shit, I can get drunk and write about domestic violence. Dude, I'm completely capable of being a Bukowski.
Yeah, but I mean, what I mean is he's such a great writer that, you know, he's not pretentious, and it's like, it's real down to earth, and it's so simple that you're like, I could do this.
He's the only dude that makes poetry that makes you feel like I could be a poet. Like anybody else just makes you feel like inept, but when you hear him,
I mean,
it's like it's possible.
There's so many books out there that are just so boring, and they don't really inspire you. But I mean, Hicks inspired a lot of people. You know, when people saw Hicks on stage, they're like, I want to do stand-up comedy. You know, people see Stanhope on stage. They're like, I want to do stand-up comedy, because Stanhope is so down to earth, and it seems like Doug is just talking off the top of his head, and he's just a regular guy, and he inspires a lot of people, you know, to do what he does, you know.
Do you and Stanhope actually get a lot of time to hang out anymore now that you're both, like, you probably known each other, what, 25 years or something along those lines? Like, do you really have that much time to see each other more than once a year when he wants to fly out to do a weird podcast?
I mean, he's really a funny guy. Off stage, he's nothing like he is on stage. A lot of his fans, they see him on stage and they think, oh, he's like that all the time. He's really a nice guy off stage, and he's kind of optimistic and happy, like hanging out with him. He'd go to the grocery store. Everyone at the grocery store knew his name. He's nice, and he's like bubbly, and he's like throwing fucking bottles of vodka in his grocery cart, you know, and he's nothing like he is on stage, you know. I mean, on his podcast, he's a little bit like, you know, himself on stage, but he's a regular guy, you know.
There's a good sense of that. I think that's why a lot of people like me gravitate towards people like that. But I also gravitate towards all the rest of the Unbookables, like all the people on there, like Brett Erickson, like the way that, like didn't Brett Erickson stay in fucking Illinois for like 20 years doing comedy because he had kids, and his kids got old enough for him to finally move.
Yeah,
and
then Brett had a daughter, and so Brett is a responsible parent, and so Brett saved his money. He worked his ass off digging pools, and when his daughter got old enough to go to college, he's like, fuck it, I'm selling my house. My daughter's grown up. I'm moving to LA. And so that's what Brett does. I mean, Brett, he had a house. Part of the Unbookables was filmed in Brett's house, and he planned that whole thing out, and he didn't want to go to LA until he was ready. And when he moved to LA, he had two CDs of material out. He's a great comic. He's working the Comedy Store. He's a great comic, and people didn't give him. I mean, Doug knew how good Brett was, but Brett was, after my daughter's grown up, I'm moving to fucking LA. I think that's what happened. I mean, he never told me that, like, personally, but I think that's what happened.
Right. I'm curious. All these other comedians, except for, I mean, maybe a couple of them like Lipsky and like Christine Levine and stuff like that. They made big moves to like LA or maybe New York or something like that, trying to make a name for themselves. It doesn't seem like you ever went down that path. What was or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't know that side of your life.
No, I never moved to LA.
Not LA specifically, but New York or one of these comedy hubs.
I did move to New York, and you know why I moved to New York? Okay, I'll tell you why I moved to New York. Okay, so I was living in Kansas City, and Brenda, my girlfriend, who's a rape therapist, her brother, who was a really successful realtor, he had shitloads of money. He lived in New York for a long time, and he lived in San Francisco for a long time. And Brenda, she always wanted to move to New York. And so out of nowhere, Brenda goes, all right, we're saving our money. We're moving to New York. I'm like, holy shit. I'm living with a girl that wants to move to New York. I didn't want to move. So, of course, we saved our money, piled everything in my goddamn minivan, and we drove to New York. And because we had a place we could we sublet a friend's, she had a friend that lived out there, Greg Schlotthauer. And so he had a place right across the street from that famous hotel, the Chelsea. So I lived across from the Chelsea for a month. And then we moved to Queen Anne. No, we moved to Queens and stuff. So I lived in New York for 3 years. And I didn't even want to live there. But, I mean, I did still try to do comedy. I mean, the comedy out there really sucks. I like open mic nights where you can just show up and you can go on stage. New York, their open mic nights suck. It's like I was amazed.
Maybe
at,
the
like,
open mic nights, but what about like the big New York comedians that are out there that all went through that scene? Big Jay Okerson, we're talking about like
but
David
those
Tell.
guys. Yeah, nobody knew who I was in New York. The movie hadn't come out. No one gave a fuck who I was. So my idea of comedy is being able to show up Monday or Tuesday night at an open mic and there be at least 100 people in the audience. Like in Kansas City, our open mics had 250 people in the audience. You know, Seattle, we'd do open mics, we'd have 100 people in the audience, you know? And I could show up whenever I wanted to, and I'd go on stage and I'd do jokes and I'd write material, you know? In New York, I'd go to an open mic and there'd be 12 comics and no audience members. It was just comics sitting in the audience watching each other go on stage. I'm like, what kind of fucking open mic is this? You know? And then if I wanted to get on a real show, you know, you had to be famous. They wouldn't even let you on unless you've been on Letterman 3 times. Like, I'll give you an example, like The Cellar. The Cellar is a great club, but they won't let you on stage unless you've been on Letterman 3 times. And the only way you're going to get on Letterman is if you write TV clean material. I don't write TV clean material. I fucking hate TV. I don't even watch TV.
What about Louis C.K.? Louis C.K. did his whole show in The Cellar.
Yeah, Louis C.K., he could go to The Cellar anytime he wanted to. But guys like me, if I didn't have any TV credits, they weren't going to let me on The Cellar.
That's fair, 100%. But isn't it just about grinding to get to that point sometimes? Like you just have to
what?
Isn't it about grinding to get to that point sometimes? Like you have to just like grind your balls off until eventually.
I'll tell you. I didn't really like the New York attitude. Okay, so I'd go on stage in New York. I'd do my political jokes that killed in Seattle. Nobody wants to hear about politics in New York. All right, they don't care. All right, they just want to hear the jokes. Okay, like Louis C.K. doesn't really do politics. Let's face it. I mean, Hicks did politics. I mean, Stanhope does politics. But a lot of those New York comics, like David Tell, you notice he kind of makes fun of politics. Like he doesn't care. He's got this attitude. And most New Yorkers are like that. When you talk to a New Yorker, you're sitting at a bar, having a beer, you bring up anything.
What about Dave Smith?
Religion. Who?
Dave Smith, Legion of Skanks.
I have never seen him. Well, but I'm just talking about the kind of people that live in New York. You bring up anything important, like the war or politics or religion or philosophy. They sit there and they go, well, it is what it is. Or what are you going to do about it?
Wait.
I don't know, dude. You're going to read a book. You're going to fucking say something. That's their answer to everything. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? You know, you fucking...
Inman.
Let me tell you something. I used to think people that lived in New York were some of the smartest people in the world. No. They're just as dumb as people in the South. They just have a different fucking accent. I met some of the dumbest people in New York that I've ever met in my life, and they're just as dumb as those fucking hillbillies in goddamn Georgia or Mississippi
or Newport, Kentucky, 14 minutes away from us.
Whatever. It's just they don't want to talk about anything important. I'd go on stage and I'd talk about, the fucking war or the meaning of life. They just kind of stare at me like,
Well, they have a certain attitude up in New York. There's always a weird attitude. Anytime I've ever been to New York, it's always like just this weird entitled attitude where everybody walking around just always in a hurry. They just don't have any time for anything serious.
Yeah, that is exactly the other thing too, and that's what my girlfriend Brenda mentioned. Is a lot of time these people are working 3 jobs a day, and the rent is like
fuck. That's right. Yeah, it's so expensive.
The rent is like $2,000 a month. So you've got to always be working. You don't have time to read a book. You don't have time to think. I mean,
you only have time to put heroin into balloons and tie those balloons up and then sell that heroin. That way you can make rent payment. Right, Inman? Stick with me on this.
Drug dealers don't have time to read books. I mean, when I lived in Sioux City, Iowa. All right, my rent was $150 a month.
Seriously?
Right?
A month?
I lived 2 blocks from a library.
I'll go there and live like a king.
Drink beer and read books. It didn't take me. I could work 2 days a week and I could come up with $150 a month. And you have time to fucking sit and contemplate life. In New York, you don't even have time to do shit. They don't even have bathrooms in the subways.
They would just shit their pants right into their diapers.
Yeah, I remember that.
Dude, it fucking boggled my mind.
Those subways are disgusting.
When I got to New York, I was on the subway. Like, you go to a bar, you have a couple beers, you try to go home, you have to piss. There's no place to piss in the subway. There's no place to piss in the street. No place to piss in the subway. People piss and shit in the streets in New York.
I've seen it.
That's fucking
whenever I've gone to New York, I've
disgusting.
seen it every time, and it is so fucking disgusting. And those subways are filled with it too. I remember seeing someone pissing on the side, on the wall. It was just nuts.
Dude, I know. I'm from the Midwest. I mean, if you have to go to the bathroom, you just pull over to 7-Eleven. You got a goddamn bathroom.
Yeah.
I mean...
Well, I remember when I went up there, because I went on tour with Walk the Moon for one time, and we went up there, and every time we would go somewhere, they would just say you had to pay to do, like, anything. Like, parking was $30 an hour or more, and it would just be fucking ridiculously expensive. There's no point to have a car up there. No point. It's foolish.
There's no point to have a car.
It's so foolish.
No, you had said you lived and did comedy in Seattle for so long, and clearly New York is one of your least favorite places to do comedy. Where is your favorite place to do comedy?
Seattle.
Seattle, for
sure. I like Seattle. Yeah, for me. I mean, because, like, in Seattle, I'm the dumb guy. Like, because, I mean, Seattle is... got a lot of, computer programmers, a lot of professionals. And so when I walk on stage and I talk, everyone's like, oh, this is the dumb guy. I do stand-up comedy in Kansas City. Right when they hear me speak, they're like, he's using big words. I'm like, dude, I'm the dumb guy. I'm the fool.
That's funny.
I mean, I have to actually dumb it down. I have to act fucking retarded in Kansas City just to get laughs.
Damn, that's hilarious. So, that's crazy. Stand-up comedy just seems like, I feel like there would be so much competition with all the comics, but everyone just seems like so supportive about it. Is there competition in the comedy scene? Is there a lot of that? Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, if you're lucky, you'll get in with a group of people. Like in Seattle, I got into that group, Tana and Brody and Yoshi, and we all helped each other out, and there was a good scene, and there was none of this, here in Kansas City, and from what I hear in Seattle now, there's all these people arguing about what's appropriate, what's not. There's a club out there that they're doing stand-up, and they got this list of jokes you can't talk about.
That's so fucking dumb.
And so, you got these 2 groups in Seattle that, one group of comics are like, let's joke about anything. And the other group of comics are like, these jokes are offensive. And so.
That's how it's always been, though, right?
No, it's never been like that. It's just recently after Facebook came out and all these people started talking. And so we didn't have, like, when I started in comedy, we didn't have social justice warriors that get offended at a goddamn joke on stage. Actually, to tell you the truth, in real life, it's not like Facebook. Like, you go to a comedy club, the people that actually get up, spend money, and go to a live comedy club.
All of us.
They
all
laugh
of us
at
here.
everything.
Yeah, that's all of us.
They
all
laugh
of us
at
here.
everything. It's just these people on social media that never get out of the house, that sit behind their and just go, oh, how could you say that? Dude, when's the last time you've been to a comedy club? Shut the fuck up.
100%. A lot of the people that are getting offended are keyboard warriors that don't actually go there. And like, when you get into a room like that where people are obviously making jokes about dark topics, you realize this is a joke. Like, he's just trying to make people laugh. He doesn't believe this necessarily. He's not trying to advocate a hate speech of like trying to make people feel bad about themselves. He's just trying to make people laugh about shit that we all notice that some people are afraid to talk about. And that's what a lot of comedy is.
Most comics, professional comics that have been doing it years, they go up on stage in front of any crowd and they can make any crowd laugh. And if you were to take that set and type it out and read those jokes, you would find all kinds of shit that's offensive. But when you're in a comedy club, people know that it's comedy. But behind the keyboard on Facebook, or somebody passes a video around, how could you? It's like, dude, you weren't even there. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Now, I know that you were talking earlier in the show about how a lot of Louis C.K.'s, like, everybody getting mad about what he said, punching down, all this, that, and the third, is a lot of distractions. But did you actually get a chance to listen to the 52-minute bootleg that was put out?
Yeah, I listened to it.
Me and my girlfriend listened to it, and me and her's honest opinion, like, politics aside, however you feel about whatever he did, all that bullshit aside, whatever's going on in his personal life, just what I listened to, me and her laughing our asses off the entire fucking time. Thought it was hilarious. Me and her like holding each other, crying, laughing. I thought it was so fucking funny.
Yeah, and not only that, but when you listen to the audio, you can obviously hear the people in that room laughing. When something's not funny, the whole audience will act like a herd of people. Comedy is kind of easy because you're kind of controlling the herd. It's crowd dynamics. And when you walk on stage, you kind of know what's going to make everyone laugh, and you kind of know what's going to... If you say something like, oh, I've got bone cancer, everyone's going to go, holy shit! You know? and the whole... You're going to lose the audience. There's no part of that Louis C.K. audio tape where he loses the audience.
He gets up there and he's like, what kind of year were you guys having? And everybody just kind of like nervously giggles. And he's like, I bet my fucking year was way worse. I bet I top everybody in this fucking room for worst year. And I'm like, he's addressing it. He's addressing it. Like, the first thing. And then he goes from like addressing it to just like regular comedy that Louis C.K. has always been brilliant for doing. And I was worried like, oh, fuck, he's taken months off stage. No one's let him back on. I mean, Governor's let him back on a couple times. That's maybe like his fourth set. How's he gonna do? He's gonna do as good as a fucking 30-year seasoned comedian is gonna do. That's on his caliber of comedy, and that's what he performed. And this wasn't supposed to get out. It's got to be annoying for a comic to have fucking somebody sitting there with a recorder in their pocket recording the shit that isn't even finished. But even that shit was brilliant and fucking hilarious. I don't care how you feel about his situation or his politics or the politics of the situation. I thought it was hilarious.
I like when comics call that shit out. When I saw Joe Rogan, he was calling people out and calling them bitches and shit every time he saw someone with a cell phone. I just think that's funny. You shouldn't record that shit. You got to enjoy it.
It's practice. Every other bit except for the one that's being recorded for the CD or the DVD is practice. And how would you feel if your practice guitar session was being recorded before you released your fucking full album, or you practice vocals where you cracked your voice and everything was fucked up, and that's how everybody feels about the way you sing? Like, if you put it in musical terms, like, that's what that shit is to me. I'm not a comedian though. How do you feel about it, Inman?
About
like somebody recording some shit like this?
Well, I think there's, you know, it's kind of hard to, like, you can't start searching everybody that goes into the club. He's got this reputation now. There's going to be some crazy people following him. Doug's got a good point about, tape recording somebody, he hasn't finished his artwork yet,
That's where I'm getting what I just said. By the way, it's a Stanhope thing. I'm not. I
think on that thing he brought it on himself. I really don't think he cares that much. I think he's been doing it long enough to know, hey, whatever, I got to deal with it. That's the kind of thing that a good comic does when they have tragedy in their life. They find a way to deal with it. But if you do something really heinous, everyone is going to ostracize you, like Bill Cosby. That's a good example.
Fucking Bill Cosby.
My deal with Bill Cosby is I never liked him to begin with. I never liked doing comedy. I never liked Bill Cosby. And after, he got caught being a goddamn rapist, of course he's going to be in jail. But with Louis C.K., it's a little gray area there. It's not, I don't know. It's just.
But didn't he get permission? He got permission for the whole thing? Weird.
We don't know the full story, but his accusers say that they gave him permission because Louis C.K. is not here to defend himself, so it's weird talking about it. But the stories I've heard from his accusers are that he asked to beat off in front of them, and they said yes. But they only said yes because they felt like he was in a position of power over them, that
and that
he was their boss on a TV show or something. And
I know, but see, it's so absurd because.
And you're like, so wait, you gave him consent, but it wasn't real consent because of the position that you were in.
All right, let me tell you something. Here's what no one has ever mentioned ever. When has a woman ever wanted to fuck a powerless guy? Women are they out there fucking homeless people? No, they're not. They want to fuck powerful men. They fucking, half of them are always looking for a guy that has got power. It's an aphrodisiac, for fuck's sake.
Good point. Very good point.
Well, Inman's.
Yeah, until women start fucking homeless guys, shut the fuck up. God damn.
Oh, holy fucking shit. When's the last time that you were able to get on stage, Inman?
I don't know. Last week I was doing an open mic.
You just stay to the open mics? Come out to Cincinnati sometime, dude. They have
I know. I gotta book myself. I was busy fixing my girlfriend, my wife. We're not married, but we've been living together for 12 years. My rape therapist girlfriend, she wants to remodel the kitchen, so I've been working on the kitchen. And after I get that done, I'm just gonna book myself and go on the road.
You should, dude.
Yeah, we'll be there, man, if you come out here.
Yeah, you come out to Cincinnati. We'll be there for sure, man.
James, I just got to say I was so worried about getting you on this podcast today because you didn't get back to me until an hour and a half before the podcast. And I'm over here sweating with my girlfriend like, oh, fuck.
Oh, no.
Inman just said, yeah, because years ago, before I had this podcast, I wanted to start something, and I was like, I know the guy from the Unbookables. I'm going to talk to him on Facebook and fucking try to get Inman to record some podcasts with no means, no studio, no fucking way to record it, no nothing. Just hit the guy up on Facebook and make a commitment that I can't actually commit to and shit. And telling Inman about how I want to get a microphone. I don't have anything ordered, no money to order it, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I had to bail on him. I was like, dude, I know I told you that we were going to record this on this month. This was 4 years ago. I was like, but I can't do it. And then I haven't talked to Inman since on the internet and shit. I don't really know Inman, just through the internet and whatnot. And then I write him recently to do this fucking podcast, and he agrees to do it maybe, 2 months ago, month and a half ago, something.
I don't know. How did we meet? Did we meet on JLDS or did we meet on Facebook?
I think we met at NAMBLA. Was that NAMBLA meeting? Kidding, of course. No, I don't know. I knew you from the Unbookables, and I added you and a bunch of other comedians on Facebook, and then just had the balls to try to talk to you and shit. But the point is, I hit you up to do it, and you're like, yeah, tell me the week of or day of. I write him in on Sunday, thinking oh, he's gonna get back to me right away. Podcast reports Tuesday.
I know.
I just see him read it, and I was like, oh fuck, he's gonna bail on me to get me back from 4 years ago, where I bailed on him.
I'm working on that. I was working on that goddamn kitchen on the weekend. I'm sorry I didn't get back to you, but I did see your message. I was like, well, he's gonna get a hold of me on Tuesday, and then I'll just do it. So
it
I
all
hope
ended
turned
up working
good.
out great, and thank you so much for doing it. I just thought it was funny, like me sitting there like flop sweating, like, oh fuck, I really want to get James Inman on the podcast, but like maybe he's not gonna even write back just because I rolled him on getting on the podcast last time and shit. But yeah, man.
Well, I think I'm gonna go out and get some beer or something.
Sounds great, man. Thanks for being a part of the podcast.
Yeah,
for
for
the
sure,
last
man.
hour and 15 minutes and whatnot.
Nice meeting you, bro.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to
Let's
promote?
not make it too long. I don't know. There's enough shit on here. People take me out of context. Who knows?
Oh, it'd be fun.
I hope it. I'll post it. I'll tweet it. I don't know. Do you do this every week?
Yeah, every week.
Every week.
Comes out every Sunday. Your episode will be out this Sunday.
I need to book myself. I'll let you guys know when I go back on the road after I get this goddamn kitchen done.
We'll give you a shout out,
And
bro.
yeah. So anyway, let's all have some good thoughts about Brody Stevens, one of my good friends that I started. He started in Seattle. I'm gonna say some more Tibetan prayers for him tomorrow, I think. And I'm sorry I ended up talking about myself too much. I hope you had fun.
Oh yeah, dude.
Absolutely.
You were awesome.
Absolutely.
That's what
You're
all
hilarious.
we wanted. All we
Yes.
wanted
So
was
funny.
you to come on and talk about yourself. We appreciate the fuck out of you, James.
Yeah.
Inman. Was there anything else that you want to promote? Tell them where to get your stuff online.
I would like somebody to get my CDs and review them on Amazon or something. Nobody ever talks about my CDs. I
What are they
just wonder
called?
if they're any good.
What are they called, James?
I've got one CD called Pander Monkey, and the other one's called Misogynist Clown. And so I released them both at the same time. And so one is kind of politics and ranting, and the other is about relationships, sex, and women. And I just used the phrase misogynist clown just to get, just to get some buzz or something. Nobody gives a fuck about that CD. I think it's funny. So listen to my CDs, leave a review on Amazon, tell me what you think. That's all I care about.
And
Watch the Unbookables.
I've bought both of the CDs that James is talking about, and
Review them on Amazon, dickhead.
I need to.
Yeah,
I
you
didn't-
piece of shit.
Hey, fuck faces! I didn't buy it on Amazon. I bought it when James released it a couple years ago on fucking, what was it, James Google Play or some shit like that. You had it. Yeah, it had like prank calls and shit on there, and weird like bootleg shit on there. And it was a great CD. You guys should check that out. Also, really quickly before we get off here, we need to mention our sponsor. That's Kneel to No One. I'm wearing a shirt right now.
Check his shit out.
Anthony Tank Mansfield. If you guys look through our YouTube video, he has these awesome fucking Samurai Sifter glasses, the Hop Thulu glasses. I've got the Hop Thulu fucking shirt on right now. He's got a Motor Hop shirt. He's got all kinds of cool
Which is the
enamel
one
pins.
Cody really is wearing.
Yeah.
I'm drunk. I fucked up which shirt that I'm wearing.
He's had like
I'm
7
actually-
beers
I
this
wanna
whole
get
time.
In an hour, I've drank 7 beers, so if I'm a little drunk,
Let's
forgive
end
me.
this goddamn podcast so I can go buy some booze.
All right, sorry, Inman. Well, check out
All
our
right.
sponsor. Check out Inman. Inman, much love. Thank you so much for joining our podcast
Thanks,
today.
brother.
All right. See ya.
See you around.
Peace, ladies and gentlemen.
Peace. Take it easy.